Hello, beautiful moms and entrepreneurs. My name is Charisse Walker, and I am thrilled to welcome you to the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. This is a place where we come together to learn, grow, and inspire one another. I'm excited to share both my personal journey and the personal journey of others with you, and to show you that anything is possible if you set your heart and mind to it. We are all unbreakable mompreneurs, and we are in this together. Today, I'm here with Sabine, and I'm so excited to have her talk because she has a phenomenal message that she's going to share. She's a mother, of course. She's had 7 different businesses, and I'm just going to stop right there and I'll let you finish introducing yourself. I got too excited.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And I've been a multipreneur and I had my first company when I was 19. I'm also a mother of 20-year-old twins, and for most part of being a mom, I was a single mom and built my business. And I recently sold my latest company last year and retired, so to speak. But I
Congratulations.
retired from starting new businesses, but I'm very active now at this point in my life, just sharing my stories and inspiring others to living the same exciting and phenomenal life that I feel like I have lived until now. And now it's just a different chapter for me of sharing more going outward than just doing it for myself. So that's where I'm at.
That's fantastic. And I have twins too. I didn't tell you that. Mine are
No
24.
way.
They're my oldest of lots. So you also were a single mom. So kind of tell me what it was like being the single mom, juggling the business, juggling the kids, and how did you handle that?
I think that the biggest thing, and I'm sure everybody tells you that, is for me, it was the guilt. The guilt of feeling like I wasn't enough mom to them because at the same time I was trying to run and build the business. And um, I it was tearing me up. It was really hard. It's the hardest part. And then when they weren't with me and they would spend time with their dad, um, it was tearing me up because they weren't with me. And, I had a really hard time um, doing things then for myself,
Mhm.
So it was a struggle. And I feel like the first few years of even while I was with their dad, um, they're blur because having twins is just so hard. And it's like, I don't remember them being little. I just don't even remember that part. It just went zoom and you just did it all day, as you know. And then you're like, oh, wow, how did I get here? I don't recall, you know. And then once they were older and I was on my own with them, I feel like that's a blur because I was so busy trying to do it all. So
Right.
now I look at these kids and I'm like, they're both over 6 feet tall. And I'm like, how did we get here?
Hmm.
So, but the thing is, I have no regrets and I don't beat myself up over any of it because I know, and I think that's the thing that's so important to remember is that we do the best that we can and that's good enough.
Right.
And let's stop beating ourselves up. And I look at these kids now and how they've turned out and they're in the world and, I like all over the map and they're living their lives and they're independent, they're strong and they're confident. And they often say things from like, oh, wow, this is how you saw this, where it gives me confirmation that I was actually like a role model to them,
Yeah.
and I encourage them to become who they are today because of
Mhm.
how I navigated my way through this, and I feel like as long as we're in integrity of who we are and how we want to be as a mom, even if we don't do it perfectly, but as long as we're in integrity, I think that's all we need to be,
Yeah.
you know.
I think so. I think when the kids know that you love them, right? They either know that you're a burden or they know that you love them. I know very few moms who think that their kids is a burden. Actually, I don't think I know a single one. So that's good. Um, and so because of that, kids know that you do the best you can with what you have at the time. And every single kid is different. So like with my twins, they were the firstborn. So you did everything with two hands and it wasn't a big deal. You did it.
Right.
I think I held their hand a little too much because I was so used to doing things for both. Whereas the second and third, it's like, oh, hello. You have some, and then the fourth or the fifth and sixth, it's like, you know, wow, it's just take care of yourself. No, I'm kidding. But I mean, you're so much more laid back. Like my girls go to
Yes.
school with their hair combed, but not done. Like they just don't want it. They want it down. And so I think that we evolve and I think kids are adaptable to that as long as they know you love them. And so I read in your that you were a bodybuilder. Is this true?
Mhm.
Okay, so talk to me about that.
So, I think 4 or 5 years ago now, I um I was surprised in my sleep and somebody came into my house and
Oh,
attacked me in my sleep. And it was a horrible experience and I had terrible PTSD from that. And I was going down. I didn't want to get out of bed anymore. And I started drinking and it was just that point COVID started. And I found my saving grace in working out. That really, I can say that today, it saved my life, I believe. And I realized that whenever I worked out, I started to feel better. I'm like,
wow.
okay. And then I got into that lifestyle of I work out, well, then you don't drink because
Right.
like that would be counterproductive. And you also can't go to a 6 a.m. class if you had 5 glasses of whiskey the night before. So
True.
I stopped and I focused on the training. And sometimes, and the endorphins that come with the training made me feel better. And sometimes I would go in the morning and then I would get home at night and I'd be like, okay, I need to go again. I need to get back on that high. I need to get my high and my feeling good from something.
Fix.
So
Yeah.
I would go to the gym again. And then COVID hit and everything shut down. And I thought, oh no, what am I gonna do? That's my lifeline, my security blanket. No, this cannot be. And then through a friend, I got introduced to a professional bodybuilder who owned a gym in Los Angeles, and he said, "Come see me." And he looked at me and he said, "Yeah, I can do something with you." And then it was like Rocky, the movie. We would sneak into his gym and train in the dark, no AC on, every day trained for like 3 hours. And I
Wow.
fell in love with that and with the lifestyle and with how it made me feel. And um, I trained until last year in September. So I did about 4 years of intense training, at
Wow.
least 6 days a week, about 3 hours a day, sometimes twice a day, and had amazing results. Loved it. It
Mhm.
changed my life. I can truly say today that this horrible incident that happened to me um, actually turned into a gift of exploring something that I don't think otherwise I would have explored. And and then last year I ended up with some cancer and had to stop training. And then I decided to start a whole new chapter. And I ended up moving from Los Angeles to Europe. So I'm in Europe right now.
Hmm.
I sold everything. I sold the business, I sold my house, all my furniture. And on December 31st, I was standing at the airport with 2 suitcases, all that I had left,
Wow.
and went to the mountains, the German Alps. So that's where I'm at now. And I stopped. I stopped the training, which was really hard, first because I was ill. And then once I got better and I could train again, I was like, I think this chapter's over.
Mm.
I feel like I'm strong enough on my own. I don't have to prove myself anymore to either myself or anybody else. And so since September, I've been getting used to a new version of myself.
Yeah.
I came here and I immediately got a membership at a gym, and then I realized, what are you doing? You took your LA mindset with you. You just changed geographically. You got to stop this.
Mhm.
And now I am playfully, like childlike, exploring other things. So I started to do yoga, which was unimaginable with for me before. I was leg
Right.
pressing
Calm me
close to
down.
700
Yeah.
pounds. And now I'm like, yoga? Really? So I started yoga. This morning I went to a stretching class. I've been doing Pilates. I got myself an e-bike. I raced through the mountains to get that thrill a little bit. And so I'm exploring different ways of exercising in a kinder, more gentler way in this chapter of my life. And but like even this morning I went to a stretching class and you have to walk through the gym and I'm like, oh, oh, okay, no, we're not doing this right now.
Wow.
So my heart misses it a little bit,
Mhm.
or a lot. And let's see. This chapter of my life is really more about, okay, let's get a new perspective and let's have some fun. Let's explore different things and let's be a little kinder to ourselves. And I think it's the thing that really got me on this whole new path is really my daughter. And that's when you know, I feel like that's when you know what, you did a good job. Because just before my kids graduated from high school, and they were like, yeah, we're gonna leave. And I was like, what? They're like, we're gonna go back to Europe. And I
Wow.
was in shock. I was devastated. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna be alone in this house alone, no
Mhm.
more kids. And I was really upset for a little while. And then my daughter sat down with me and she said, Mom, the world's your oyster. You have earned it. Go be free. Have fun.
Wow. That,
And
oh, go ahead.
that really hit a spot where I was like, oh my goodness, yes, she's right.
Mhm.
And I think of that so often. And now that I've been here for like 2 months, I finally life calmed down and I get to reflect on that. It shows me that, wow, you did a good job, you know?
Mhm. That's what I was going to say is in a world where a lot of kids don't want to leave the house, 20, 30 years old, they're still living at home. And the fact that your daughters not only said we're leaving, like they're moving across the sea. And
Yeah.
so they were willing to leave because you've raised them enough to be independent. And then for them to give you that freedom and, some training. I think that that's something that when we have older children, our kids start to teach us a little. And you're
Right.
like, wait a second, I'm the parent. Uh-huh. But they have different perspectives, which are very wise. And so kudos to you that you, as a mom, doing all the things that you did, that a lot of times the kids can be a little resentful or not because you weren't home or right. But for them to say that, that's incredible. Second of all, for your resilience and your perspective. You could easily be a victim laying in bed, blaming the world being on disability from the government, because we see that all the time. So the fact that you didn't do that, what do you think was the root of that? Like your resilience? Where do you get that strength from?
I think I've had that all my life.
Mhm.
I left Germany when I was 17 on my own and I went to Canada
Okay.
and I was in high school there and then after high school my parents said you have to come back. We can't afford to have 3 kids overseas. Like everybody gets a year. And after my first year I got a full scholarship at the school and then so I could stay, but then they're like you have to come home. And I didn't want to come home. So I went actually, they made me come home because I was underage. And so I went back home and I hated it. And I was like, no, I want to go back out in the world. And they were like, well, you're on your own. So I went back to Toronto and I was, I think, 19 at that point. And I was homeless. And I was sitting on a park bench and I was like, I'm gonna I'm gonna make this. And I had a dream of a company that I wanted to have. And so I started my first company when I was 19 on a park bench in Toronto. I to this day I remember which bench it was and which park it was. And that was my first business. And the thing is, I think to answer your question, for me, it's always I've when I I want something and I want to get better, or I want to be on my own and I want to survive and I don't want to live on a park bench,
Mhm.
then I have a plan. And there's never a moment of doubt in my head that that's not going to work out. Like
Yeah.
whatever I've done in my life. And even now, when I packed up, my friends were like, "You're crazy. You have a great business. You make good money. What are you doing?" And I said, "I know there's another chapter. I know there's more, and I'm gonna go." And then they were like, "Well, what if this and what if that?" I said, I don't do that. I don't go to, I don't create that movie of worst case scenarios in my head. For me, it's like, it's going to be great. Whatever it's going to be great." I said, "I don't have all the answers. I don't know. I'm just going to go." And then I know as long as my heart and soul is in it, it's going to show me the way,
Mhm.
whatever that might be. I was just talking to a friend now, and she said, "Are you going to come back and in LA?" And I'm like, "Oh, no." I said, "I might move to Italy next year. I'm toying with that idea. I don't know. I
That's
will figure it out." So
that's
I
cool.
think that's like, I've never kept like one foot in one thing and do the other one. I've always gone 100% into something and just had faith that it's going to be okay. Whatever it's going to be fine. Let's do this.
Wow. So what are some of the businesses that you've done? Like the most recent one that you've sold? What was it?
So that was an e-commerce business.
Mm.
I started on Etsy 16 years ago in a spare bedroom. We just had a house fire and we lost everything we ever made.
Oh my gosh.
And
You're alone.
I, yeah, and I was like, "And now what?"
Mhm.
And I remember I was like, "I need to make money. Like, what am I going to do?" And I applied to jobs, which I only ever had a 6-month job when I came out of university, and I realized corporate was not for me. I was an entrepreneur at heart, and I'm like, this is not for me. And so um I applied for a job because I had 2 kids. I'm like, I can't do this with 2 kids. And
Mhm.
they were little, they were like 4. And so I got a job at Deutsche Bank. And then I thought about this and I was like, oh my God, I am going to drop off my kids in daycare at 6 a.m. And then I'll pick them up just before I put them back to bed. This is not, it was so hard for me to get pregnant. Like we're not going to do this. And then I started to create jewelry for myself
Mm.
because especially after the house fire, there was lawsuits and everything was going on. And I needed something to like keep my faith.
Mhm.
And I created these pieces that were specifically for myself, and people started to notice them and said, "Where do you get that?" And so I would tell them, and that's how I started my business in a spare bedroom when my kids were asleep. And it turned from that to something that allowed me to retire at 51. And I provided workspace opportunities for other moms so that they could take care of their kids. That was always my dream. So I'm going to create a company now where moms can do work that they really truly enjoy doing and yet
Mm.
have the flexibility and the freedom to raise their kids without having to put them into daycare.
Well,
And so I created quite a few opportunities for women like that. And I also turned into a philanthropic business where I gave back to organizations that help children and students come out of homelessness because that was dear to my heart too. So it was a love project.
mhm.
And then at the end, it was time. It was time to let it go and start a new chapter.
That's amazing. So you mentioned that you started your very first business at 19 on a park bench. And so what I ask my guests is if you were talking to, we'll say, I usually say 18, but I'm going to say if you were talking to your 19-year-old self now, what is one piece of advice you would give your 19-year-old self?
I would say keep that faith no matter what, and you're going to be fine.
And I love that because I think sometimes it's easy. I hear people get mad at God or whatever higher power you have or faith, and they blame, why are you doing this to me? I'm a good person, or I do this or that. And, I wish that some people they would change their perspective and say, what can I learn from this? Because we talked to somebody like you who your house burned down. We didn't even talk about that, and you had cancer and you were attacked and you were a single mom and we could keep going, I'm sure. And instead of you becoming a bitter, angry person who's a victim, you said, no, this isn't going to define me. That's rare, I think, in a lot of people.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the only way to go. Otherwise, life turns into this painful struggle.
Mhm.
And I didn't want to be in pain. Sure, I was temporarily in pain. Yeah. I mean, after the attack, and I was broken. I was physically broken. I was emotionally, spiritually broken. But whatever life has presented me with, and there's been a lot of stuff, I've felt it. I would allow to feel it and then say, and now what is that you want? What
Mhm.
do I want?
Yeah.
I don't want this. I don't want to lay in bed and drink. I don't. So, and then I feel like when we change our attitude towards these things, I I feel so grateful because in those moments, there's always people appear in our lives who
Yeah.
help us, who accompany us on these journeys
Mhm.
and make this a little easier
Yeah.
and doable, and yeah, it yeah, it's
Yeah.
the struggle, the pain that we can't choose that. We can't. And I've always, and even now, like I said before, I feel like these challenges, we can turn them into gifts.
Right.
As crazy as that sounds, and people are sometimes like, what are you, insane? Like, how can you? And that's really actually when we had the house fire and my now ex, I at some point I told him, I said, let's turn this into a gift, a new opportunity to start something new. Let's take the kids and go somewhere else and start over. We've done it before multiple times. We're going to do it again. Come on, it's going to be fun. Let's come up with a new business. And he looked at me and said, you are insane. And I said, no, that's the only way to get yourself out of this hole. Like, you
Yeah.
know, and I really truly believe that. And I think the other really important thing is to forgive.
Mhm.
We need to learn to forgive whoever has done this to us,
Mhm.
whether it's the attack. It was really not my fault. I was asleep in bed. Like, that's not something I asked for. Like, whoever has done this to us, or the house fire that happened, it was an accident by it was a new construction. Kids played in it and put it on fire. Like, it, it was an accident, but things happen in life and we need to forgive and
Mhm.
move on. And
Yeah.
forgive for ourselves, for our own benefit, not for the other person, but
Mhm.
for our own benefits.
I call it locus of control. I used to run a college and I remember this woman came in and everything was this big deal. Everything, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. What are we going to do? Right. And we were getting ready to get accredited. And she's like, Charisse, and she just came in my office and I was the director. That's also like the principal of the school. Right. And
Uh,
I looked at her and I started laughing. She's like, how can you laugh at a time like this? I go, well, what else can you do? Is it your fault that this happened? No. Can you control it? No. I'm like, then let's laugh about it, And she's like, I can't believe that. And so I think locus of control, I look at it and I've done this with teenagers. I have them stand up and I put your arms out like this. And I said, and do the Wonder Woman, like from the 1970s, 80s, whenever Linda Carter has she turned in a circle with Wonder Woman and then she turned into Wonder Woman. And like that's going to change. It was hilarious. But I think of it as locus of control. Like how much more control can you have than turning like your circle that's right here? That's it, right? Can I control what you're going to say next? No. Can I control what you're going to think? No. Can I control what you think of me? No. So the only thing I can control is what I can like here. This is my locus of control. And so because of that, like eventually that changed my life because I realized I'm not going to continue living for other people. I used to be this huge people pleaser and I never wanted anybody to be mad at me. And then I just got tired,
it's
and
exhausting, isn't it?
it is. Well, and you're stressed all the time and you're unhealthy. And so because of that, it completely changed. And I think the nicest and biggest compliment when I left that college was she's like, "Charisse, this happened," and I laughed about it. You know? And I think for you, it's the same thing. Like, you said it. It was boys. It was an accident. I couldn't control that. I was asleep in bed. I couldn't control that. And because of that, you've been able to heal yourself probably without you. Like, that's just in you. It's something that comes natural to you. For other people, they don't have that blessing or talent. I think they have to work at it a little more. So kudos to you on that.
And I think once you've experienced enough bad stuff in your life, I think you get better at it because like you either get better or, or it's not good. Like life is not going to be good.
Mhm.
Um, and I feel like a lot of people, like you said, try to control their circumstances. And I just did actually an episode on that because it became so clear to me how many people are trying. It's like when you're drowning in the ocean and they're trying to fight the waves. Like we have no control over that. Let's not try to fight something where we're going to lose every single battle. We don't have control over circumstances. The only thing we have control over, actually not even control over, but we can master is what goes on in here and how
Mhm.
the thoughts are going to come like this is bad.
Mhm.
Okay, but now what are we going to do with that thought? Are we going to give it importance and let us bring us down, maybe temporarily, but then how long are we going to give this importance? How much weight do we give this? It's that is up to us. That's what we have control over. So okay, that thought's there. Now let's evaluate. No, I don't want to feel like this. And then we have control over that. What are we going to do about that?
Mhm.
Am I going to reach out a hand and maybe ask somebody for help? Or what else can I do to get myself out of the circumstances that I'm in? Because the circumstances I can't change, but this and here and in here, I
Mhm.
can I can change.
Absolutely. Well, how do people find you if they want to find out and learn more from you or contact you?
So I have a website called thepowerlifecoach.com. On there are all my links, my social media links, and then also I have a podcast called The Power Life, and I share a lot of my stories and my experiences on there, and yeah, and everything else can be found on my website, The Power Life Coach.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us. You are truly an example of resilience, of strength, and the power of being a victor over significant trauma. So,
Thank
congratulations
you so much. I appreciate it. Nice talking to you.
as well. Remember, you are unbreakable. Keep illuminating the world with your strength, pursuing your dreams, and reveling in the splendor of motherhood. This is Charisse Walker bidding you farewell for now. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations on the next episode of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. Until then, keep shining bright. Signing off with love, Charisse Walker.